What is the strangest mystery that is still unsolved? The lost A-bomb off the coast of America, which the US government said not to worry about in the 50s and tried to cover up, was dumped in the ocean in an aviation accident, and it's still lost to this day, 100x more powerful than what was dropped in Japan. This dude got lost in the catacombs, and they found camera footage of his journey, but at some point he drops the camera and just starts to run. As far as I know, nobody has found out WTF happened to him. Perhaps not the absolute strangest, but in March of 2020, the Windows market share for the long discontinued Windows XP skyrocketed by about 10% in China. This spike in Windows XP use for just 1 month is for unknown reasons. Some people think the Chinese government could have been looking for security flaws in the operating system to take advantage of. After all, lots of sensitive government equipment still runs on Windows XP. The suicide of Lavina Johnson, a black female US Army private who was found shot to death inside a burning tent with a broken nose, black eyes, broken teeth, raped and acid burns on her genitals in July 2005. US Army ruled her death a suicide. There was a whole podcast episode about this on Crime Junkies, and it seriously swayed me into no longer looking into going into the military. What a ducking disgrace. You can serve your country honorably without potentially falling victim to being raped and or murdered by your own damn comrades. This infuriates me. The Miyazawa family. Just listen to the Cassophile podcast on this, and it has my mind blown. Someone entered the family home around 11:30 p.m. Killed everyone, ate some ice cream, took a nap, pooped and didn't flush, changed clothes and left like 8 hours after the crime. 20 years on, and we don't know who or why. The Overtown Bridge. It's a bridge in Scotland where dogs always unexplainably jump off. It's very strange and nobody knows for certain why they do this. Dogs who survived reportedly walked back up and jumped off again. They even had to put up a warning sign to keep your dog on a leash and to watch them. A lot of theorists say maybe it's because of certain scents or animals down below, but most people have disagreed with this theory. It's duckin' weird. Edit. In reality, I've done more research thanks to some comments, and it seems like people have romanticized this to make it creepier than it actually is. I don't know exactly what to believe, since there's so much misinformation out there, but I'll just believe the articles who've done the most research for now. They say it was most likely not hundreds of dogs, because they can't find reports of that many jumping off like the legend says. It was only around 6. So it's likely that I was misinformed, like so many other people were, and it's not actually a huge phenomenon lol. But it's still sad and a bit weird that 6 dogs jumped off. The whereabouts of the last Gestapo chief Heinrich Müller. The last verified sighting of him was in Berlin roughly 3 days before it fell. He had stated he knew full well what the Russians did to prisoners, and he had no intentions of being captured. As chief of the Gestapo, he more than likely had access to foreign documents as well as ways to replicate them. Both the CIA and the KGB spent time looking for him, but no trace has ever been found. Asher degree. Girl leaves her house in the middle of the night during a storm and disappeared. The only problem is that she was terrified of thunder and lightning and had no motive for leaving, because her home life was fine. Then her clothes and backpack were found a year later in an abandoned construction site. Who was Perseus? From 1943 to 1946, the Soviet Union had a high-level spy in the Manhattan Project, codenamed Perseus. This spy was a scientist at the White Sands missile testing site in NM and the main research facilities in Los Alamos. Perseus saw pretty much the entire project start to finish, giving the Russians everything they needed to get to work on their own bomb. The fact that they were able to do so within 4 years of the end of WWII, when their nations were still devastated, is proof positive that Perseus helped a great deal. And to top it all off, Perseus was never caught or positively identified. Flight 19 of December 5, 1945. 5 bomber craft on a routine training run became lost while heading back and eventually disappeared entirely. Audio has them saying, that they thought they had ended up over the Florida Keys. But wind could not have allowed that. Even more interesting is the fact the rescue craft dispatched to locate them also disappeared. The Hinterkaifeck murders. Super creepy in the fact that there was evidence the murderers were in the house watching the family for a while before killing them just totally freaks me out. Edit. Thanks for the silver. First time award recipient here. And gold too. Happy almost cake day to me. An unknown group of people broke into an FBI building and no one has found out who they are. But the best part of the story is they did it by leaving a sticky note that said, "Do not lock the door tonight," and it worked. Edit. To everyone asking how they left the note, they just stuck the note to the front door. Probably should specified. Edit 2. I'm an approved member of r/what's the rule now. Edit 3. I know it's been solved. I heard about it 8 years ago and never learned that it was solved. The true author of my immortal horrible fanfiction that has a cult following. The more you dive into it, the weirder and deeper the mystery gets. Interconnected webs, false flags, all kinda stuff. Albert Johnson, the Mad Trapper of Rat River. A pretty cool, mostly forgotten story about a man chased by the RCMP through the north. The identity of and what happened to D.B. Cooper. A man on a plane called himself D.B. Cooper and claimed to have a bomb in use suitcase. He took the flight crew hostage, and when he got the money he asked for, he had the flight crew start flying again. Eventually he jumped out of the plane with a couple of parachutes and the money. No one knows where he went or if he even survived. Oh god. Here I go on another 2-hour binge of reading every comment in the thread. The Tylenol murders from the 1980s, where like 5 or 6 people from Chicago consumed Tylenol laced with cyanide and died. They had one suspect, but he went mail for it, but still went to prison because they tried to extort Johnson & Johnson, the company that makes Tylenol. Edit. Autocorrect sucks. We still have no definitive proof of who this Socrates guy is. On one hand, he's mentioned constantly by philosophers from his time, often used as an example character, and several works are attributed to his name. On the other hand, we have countless legal records and censuses that confirm the existence of Aristotle and Plato, but none that link back to Socrates. He's either a very prolific philosopher or an in-joke that classical philosophers would reference when they didn't know who to attribute quotes to. Tammy Lynn Leppert is one that really bothers me. She was an actress for the movie Scarface and Up and left the shoot when she saw a murder scene. The story goes she went to a Hollywood party and saw something that made her think she was being followed and someone wanted to kill her. Her boyfriend apparently dropped her off and she was never seen again. Her mom died still looking for her. So sad. My heart breaks for her family. The Khankala Pass in Ladakh. This region lies in the disputed border of India and China and is truly the most inaccessible places in the world. In 1962, the armies of both the countries were engaged in a severe conflict. After this, both China and India entered into an agreement according to which none will be allowed to patrol the region, but can keep an eye on it from a distance. After this, a popular belief floated that the Khankala Pass in Ladakh is a hideous base of UFOs. The area has forever remained a no man's land due to its territorial limits, and is a reason why the UFOs have chosen it as their operational base. Reportedly, many have seen these UFOs and both the Indian and Chinese governments are aware of these developments. In 2006, Google Maps 2 baffled the world with some images that looked like military facilities, but till date the whole issue remains mysterious and unexplainable. Why people keep pouring money into a hole in the ground on Oak Island? If you ask me, the show is a treasure. They rake in that sweet advertising money while not actually doing much more than recap past events and share about 15 minutes of new content. The Winchester Mystery House. I watched a documentary on this house when I was 10 and it has stuck with me ever since. It's about a woman named Sarah Winchester. Her husband and baby both died. Her husband owned a rifle company and she went to a psychic The psychic told her that she is being haunted by the ghosts of all the people who have died by the hands of those guns, and that is a reason for the tragedy that happened in her life. To appease the spirits, the psychic told her to build a great house for them, and she was not allowed to stop building, or tragedy will strike again. She didn't get help from anyone, but she did it and kept building for the next 38 years. There are stairs that lead to nowhere, windows that don't look out, hallways that wrapped around. It has 161 rooms and it's huge. Was it really the ghosts? Was she insane? I have no idea, but it's the most interesting story I've ever heard. Brian Schaffer went into a bar in Ohio in camera, was never seen leaving, and has been missing 14 years. It's unreal. I recommend True Crime Garage. Maura Murray and the Springfield 3. Would love both of the missing persons cases to be solved in my lifetime. Also, a local guy went missing after a car accident in 2011. Would like answers on that as well. Springfield 3 for sure. I think Maura Murray died in the woods. But how do 3 adult women all disappear from a home in a span of several hours? In 1977 we received a radio signal from outer space that lasted about 72 seconds. To this day, we still do not know where it originated from. Didn't saw it anywhere while scrolling. I'll say the disappearance of Andrew Gostin. He was a British 14 years old boy, with excellent marks, no absence, and apparently really intelligent. One day, he went out of the house to go to school, but instead of going, he waited in a public park for his parents to leave, then went back and took some affairs, money, changed clothes. He had a uniform. He put on a slipknot shirt and his PSP without the charger. He then went to the train station and went to London. The last video existing of him was at the train station. Apparently the ticket seller tried to sell him a back ticket for only one more, but Gostin refused. The idea was that maybe he wanted to go see the Muse concert that was happening in London this day or week. Later, the group helped publicize the campaign for searching. He was never seen again since that day. No one know if he's dead. If he had planned to come back, he has no coat, no vest, and he didn't take his passport. Rumor has it that he wanted to try to change life like in a movie he was found of the Fall and Rise of Reginald Perrin in which the main character fakes his death to start a new life. It happened in 2007. So he is 27 today. In 2 days actually. His birthday is July 10th. Some people think they have seen him. There are reconstitutions of what he would look like, but no one really know what happened to him. The parents have let the bank account with a lot of money in case he would need it, but he never withdrew anything except for the 100 of the day he disappeared. Death of Rai Rivera. Found dead in a meeting room in a hotel. Fell through the roof. The last call he received was from his office, but the company placed all employees under a gag order so no one can talk to police. Where the duck are all the 10mm sockets going into hiding? Possibly an underground city just for them? The Frog Boy murders. 5 South Korean boys went looking for salamander eggs in the forest one day. They disappeared. Their skeletons were found years later in a shallow grave on the mountain. Still unsolved. There's a lot of mysteries related to death. So here's one of survival. In WWII, Flight Sergeant Nicholas Alcemade jumped from his burning Lancaster bomber on a mission over Germany. He fell 3 miles and survived. He was not wearing a parachute. He couldn't access it due to the fire and decided to jump rather than burn to death. He claims that whilst falling the 5 kilometers, he felt this sense of calm. So calm that he managed to calculate how long it would take him to fall. He lost consciousness and woke up 3 hours later on the ground. It appeared he had fallen through the trees above him and landed in snow, sustaining a few injuries, but still alive. Due to his newly twisted knee, he couldn't move and was fearful he may die of exposure. He blew his whistle and was eventually found, hospital used and then imprisoned. But upon interrogation his story of falling 18,000 feet and surviving was, understandably, not believed and he was accused of being a spy. Alcemade told them that they would find the wreckage of his plane and the remains of his scorched parachute he hadn't been able to reach. And they did. Alchemade survived the war and died in 1987 at the age of 64. TL. Doctor, man falls 18,000 feet or 5 kilometers or 3 miles and survived. No one knows how. Edit. He received a twisted knee, not a broken leg. For what it's worth. Other injuries included burns to his wrists and face from being in the plane. And after he woke up he found bruising. He landed in a pine forest. It is theorized that he survived due to the flexibility of the pine branches. He observed that the snow was 18 inches deep, sheltered from the sun by the trees. Alchemade was part of the march in 1945. Epstein and the global billionaire political pedophile child sex trafficking ring. The Keddy Cabin murders, the Zodiac Killer, the Icedal Woman, the Lady of the Dunes, the Yuba County 5, those are the ones I think of the most. The Cancer Paradox. It's about creatures, like elephants and blue whale, and how they don't get cancer, when they should be more prone to it. Edit. Holy thanks for 2k upvotes. British Rail. Evandro Case. The Evandro Case, also known as the Witches of Guaratuba, refers to the kidnapping and murder of the boy Evandro Ramos Quitano in 1992 in a coastal city of Guaratuba. He was 6 years old. Disappeared on April 6th of that year. His body was found on April 11th in a thicket in the city, without several organs, with amputated hands and feet, and guts and heart torn out. There are several holes in the investigation. Involvement of the army in the investigation. Rumors of a ritual of black magic and torture of innocent suspects to invent an explanation of the crime and confess the authorship of the act. The case was closed. People died in jail, and others lost years of their life in prison. But even today there are new clues emerging. 2 years ago a podcast series was launched bringing all the history of the case. It was quite successful. A series about the case is being produced on Netflix. A couple unsolved disappearances near my hometown. By Anka Noel Piper was a teenager in rural Missouri in 2005. She was in therapy for, I believe, bipolar disorder and anger and depression in general. On the drive home, she and her mother began arguing and it escalated. Her mother let her out of the car about a mile from home and instructed her to walk the rest of the way and cool off. To the parents, this was following the instructions of the therapist to encourage Bianca to walk off her anger. Only, I doubt the therapist intended for her to walk a mile alone at night in the middle of winter with just a hoodie. When Bianca didn't come home within about an hour, the parents went to look for her and then called the police. There was very little to go on and the case is considered cold, but it is still open to new leads. Someone knows where that girl went. A lot of people point at the mother, because allowing your kid to walk home alone in the dark is a pretty bad cover story to start with. However, the parents have been cleared by the investigators of any wrongdoing. I feel like, if nothing else, they should be investigated for neglect leading to the situation. Angie Houseman is another girl, about age 9, who disappeared in rural Missouri. I believe this happened in the mid to late 80s. My mom actually told me this story, as she remembers learning about it while in high school. She told her teacher one day that she was going to visit her new friend. The teacher just told her that was nice and to have a good time. That afternoon, Angie didn't get off the bus at her stop. Locally, this was a major thing. This was considered one of the safest places in the country to raise kids. Several days later, she was discovered in a wooded area by a hunter. It may have been a hunting conservation, but I'm not totally sure. Her naked body was tied to a tree, and her clothing was nearby. She had been sexually assaulted and left to die of exposure. According to the reports, she hadn't been dead long, only a few hours, if I recall correctly. She came so close to being rescued. Angie's murderer was never found, and like Bianca's case, it is still open to new leads. My mom actually has a pretty strong opinion to who it might be, seeing as she lived in the area, but the person has since died while in prison for other sexual crimes. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.